The next topic is the GSMA defined concepts. As you probably know, so there are two concepts defined by GSMA for the remote SIM provisioning. This is the M2M or machine-to-machine one and the consumer devices one. Let's see it into details. The background is that the distribution channels for the SIM cards, they contain also the business logic. And this require different service models. So this is important to understand, so that there are these two concepts. Currently, there are no plans actually to have a convergence between these two concepts, and they are separated. So it's important to understand which kind of embedded SIM you are dealing with, or so what is the use case for your eSIM. So this is why we had this long session before. Actually, in the future versions, there will be some kind of use case which are deployed on one side or on the another side, so which are kind of similar concepts. But nowadays, so actually, the SIM card, the embedded SIM, if it is using the one concept, that cannot be used for the second concept. So it's anyway the case. So there can be the similar idea can be found in one of the concepts, but not the implementation. The implementations are totally different. So be aware of this. This is important. The business logic may dictate who has the control of device connections. Yes, and it's not practical to combine these logics into a single technical solutions for the eSIM. This is why we have the two different concepts, although there were some discussions at the beginning to have only one. So there are some distinctions for these logical channels between the direct to the consumer, or those channels that are business to consumer. And therefore, we have this consumer devices channel or solution and the M2M, machine-to-machine one. In the remote SIM provisioning, so for M2M or machine-to-machine market, so this is the area where mainly the industrial use case is reflected. And the remote SIM provisioning for consumer devices is mainly used on the consumer electronics and wearables. So what is the fundamental difference between these two concepts? This is actually the direction of control. In the M2M solution, we have the backend infrastructure, which is controlling or ruling over the eSIM. The service needs, so the service, they have a specific deployment from the Internet of Things market, and therefore it goes from business to customer. And the mobile device normally operates without any local human control of connectivity. So in the industrial, or actually here we have the machine-to-machine area. So there is actually not a human who, not the end user, let me say it this way. So human controller on the specific device who has the control of how to switch the operator. So we have the machines in front of us, and this have to be operated from the background infrastructure. Yes, some examples of it are the provisioning, billing, and the CRM systems. And the backend infrastructure selects the profiles to be downloaded and enabled or disabled depending on which country the device is operated in. This is one of the examples. In the consumer devices world, so it looks different. So the end user or the consumer has the direct choice of the operator supplying connectivity. So it means the direction of control is from the consumer to the backend infrastructure. And all subscriptions, subscription profile operations are under control, or at least subject of permissions by the end user. So the end user controls. There is a high degree of the end user interaction. The user has to be familiar with the provided user interface as well. So we have the user interface. You remember this constraints we had on the industrial and the wearables, or the consumer IoT? Yes, the choice is explicitly made by the end user. In the companion device, like a watch, yes, a companion device might make use of user interface provided by a primary device, but doesn't matter. actually, because still the control is by the end user. What is common? So now it's getting more technical. So the both architectures feature a network domain RSP system. So they're so-called SMDP or SMDP+. So we'll talk about these components later on. Both architectures rely on a secure element within the mobile device for storage, management, and operation of profiles. This is the eUSCC itself. Both architectures use cryptography based on pre-shared keys and public key infrastructures. They require a GSMA certificate issuer, or the GSMA CI, that issues digital certificates, which enable entities to securely communicate with each other, and in the consumer device solution, mutually authenticate each other. Please note that even if we have the architecture similarities between the two solutions, they are technically different and cannot be combined, and the implementation to serve both. So you cannot have the background infrastructure, so from the M2M system, and have the device from the consumer world, so they will not be able to communicate. That's all for the two differences. So as I said, it's important to understand that there are differences currently on the market. Even if there are some ideas of some concepts to be implemented in the future versions of the specifications, still it will never not be the case that you can just use the one part or one component of the one solution and the another part, also a component of the other solution. Okay, let's talk about the profiles itself. What is the profile definition and the profile switching? So what is the profile or a profile subscription? So we have an example here. This is one of the Comprion videos just to show how to get into the details of the profile.
And there we go. So now that we got the requirements for the verification out of the way, let's jump into eUICC Profile Manager to compare the installed profile on our smartphone right now, with the original profile. So let's have a look. Let's connect the eUICC Profile Manager with our own network. First thing we have to do after we connect the eUICC Profile Manager with our network is the selection of a configuration, which we can edit, by the way, in case we have to. Let's just for fun change this destination a little bit. Okay, and there we go. I mean, just a little bit. Don't get too crazy here. So now we scan the file structure of the installed profile. In this case, it would be this usem directory. And while we wait for the...
Okay, I will stop now because it goes too much into details. We are now in the basic training. So just to get your understanding. So we have profile structure, what it is. So inside of the eUICC, there is a profile. Okay. A profile comprises the operator data related to a subscription. Basically, the operator's credentials. So like keys for the network access, the mobile subscriber identity, and potentially operator or third-party SIM-based applications. There is a separate training on the profiles from Comprion, so one of the advanced trainings. So, but actually, so just to understand the basic concept. So the profiles are owned by the operator. So similar in the way how the SIM cards were owned by the operator. So it means the content and structure for interoperable profiles dedicated to eUICCs are similar to those installed on traditional SIM cards. So meaning the empty eSIM, so plus the profile, so after the installation of the profile and enabling this, and so will end up in the traditional SIM, so actually the same functionality. Yes, profiles are remotely downloaded to an eUICC over there, meaning in our RSP solutions, it's the same idea of downloading the profiles and enabling this. You remember these two solutions? And here with some pictures. In the M2M world, so on request, a new profile is transferred to the eUICC using the network. And then after the enabling, so the new profile can be used instead of the previously enabled profile. In the consumer device, there is no need to have a profile pre-installed. There is a difference. Yes, the end user may select the profile, and they use something like a Wi-Fi to transmit it, but still needs to enable this. The initial profile installed, so it can be the case that there is still initial profile installed. So it's called a provisioning profile, specific type of profile. So forward to the introduction of profile. So yes, the provisioning profile allows the device to connect to a mobile network, while the operational profile can be downloaded. Yes, with the operational profile, as soon as it is installed and enabled, so it can be used as a regular profile, so with a regular SIM card, so you can make phone calls. Multiple profiles. Currently, the EUSSC can hold more than, so yes, it's the case that EUSSC holds more than one profile. So it depends on the storage capability of the EUSSC. Sometimes there are only two so profiles, but yes, then only one profile can be enabled at a time. This is currently the case. GSMA is already working on the idea of multiple enabled profiles, but forget what I'm saying. Currently, it's only one at a time. Some profile principles, just to understand what is important. Property of the operator. So the profile is owned by the operator. It's one of the principles. So the profile is uniquely identified. So there is an identifier, so it's called ICC ID inside of it. Profile can be either enabled or disabled. There are two states of the profile. Yes, after the enabling, enabled profile in a combination with an EUSSC shall be able to carry all logical characteristics or features of a EUSSC as described in the ETSI specifications 1 or 2.2.1. So this is what I said before. Yes, profile combined with a EUSSC, so then it goes, so it's the result is the traditional SIM. So from the functionality, in simple words. Yes, there are policies for the profile management, so it's not just you download whatever, but can be the case if the policy allows. Okay, yes, and only one profile shall be enabled at any point of time. So what means enabled? Enabled means that files and applications like network access applications become selectable over the EUSSC terminal interface. So the device has access to the applications, multiple profiles. Okay, let's go to our profile guide. So we have different types of the profiles inside of the M2M and the consumer device specifications. So the one which is used mostly is the operational profile. So actually this is a profile containing one or more network access applications and associated network access credentials, operators applications like SDK, third-party applications. Okay, let me go back, so it was too fast. So operational profile is the profile that you use just to make your phone calls on a regular basis. So traditional use. Provisioning profile. As explained before, this is a profile containing one or more network access applications and associated credentials. But when it is installed on the EUSSC, it enables access to communication networks just to download the operational profile. So it's kind of a transport functionality. Test profile. Initially, it was introduced only in the consumer devices architecture, but nowadays in the later version of the specifications for M2M, it's also included because, yes, this is a specific profile with a combination of data, applications with a purpose to connect to the test equipment. It means that this profile is not intended to store any operator credentials. And the keys which are used to connect to this test equipment, so network simulator, for example, so these are only weak keys. So for example, 000. And in the consumer world, so consumer device architecture, this profile is only visible in the test mode of the device. Actually, in the M2M world as well, but so the test mode is more defined in the consumer world. So if you suddenly stuck about the definition of the test profile and test mode, take a look on the definition of the consumer world. It helps. In the M2M world, so we have a profile with a fallback attribute. You remember what I said about the bootstrapping, so sometimes quite important in case of the connectivity loss. So this is the profile which helps. So in the M2M world, so you remember you can download only using you can download new profile only using the network. So there is no way to download using Wi-Fi, for example. It means if this profile, so if there are some connectivity issues, you need a kind of profile which ensures that you can fall back on it, and the network connectivity is ensured. In the event of loss of network connectivity as detected by the machine-to-machine device, there is a need to change to the profile with a set fallback attribute. That's the flag side of it. In this case, the EUSSC disables the currently enabled profile and enables the profile with a set fallback attribute. It's automatically done. Then, generic profile. This was introduced in the very beginning, so it's not really used in the consumer world. But basically, the meaning is that sometimes it can be, so yes, the case, that the profile is generated following the operator's specifications, but without the operator's credentials. So kind of pre-generated box of the profile. And it doesn't contain any specific data linked to the future target EUSSC. And then it has to be personalized. So it's kind of a personalization of the profile before. So it's, as far as I know, so used only mostly in the M2M world. So orphan profile. This is also only for the M2M case because we have a specific use case with a definitely needed network. This is a profile whose policy rules have become unmanageable. For example, due to the termination of the customer contracts with the operator. So it's kind of that profile inside of the EUSSC, and then there is a specific procedure to get rid of it. It's not a regular way then. Okay, let's take a look into the example. This is just how the profile can look like. As I said, so there is already specific training where you will go into the details. There's one structure of this profile, but this is not the way how it is. It will be later on inside of the EUSSC. Okay, you can have different actually profile elements. So if you're familiar with the smart card architecture, and then you probably remember this kind of tree, so with the master file, and so then the DFs and EFs inside of it. So this is kind of mirroring this to the profile, so the structure. Yes, and here you can have some data, so with the different parts of the different credentials and file path, book codes, pin codes. This is just very high level overview what we are talking about. You can have different size depending on the use case. For example, currently there is a so-called generic test profile defined by the GSMA to be so the idea is that this profile can be pre-installed on the devices in order to simplify the testing of the devices which go for testing. And then you can, so it contains a lot of data because all of this data you need for the specific tests to be run on such device. So this is the idea how to simplify the testing, especially for the devices with a EUSSC which cannot be removed. Okay, we have the use case of yes, two concepts from the GSMA, and yes, the different profile types. If you remember the basic ideas which are coming from the market, from the deployment on the markets, how the systems are used, you can understand this. Why do we have different profile types? Why we have the separation of the different components, and especially the separation between the two concepts inside of the GSMA. So now I have the summary. So summary again with the 7 questions. So to check up your knowledge. So the first question is, what are the 2 GSMA solutions for EUSSC deployment? Okay, now I hope it's easy. Okay, what is the main difference between the M2M and consumer devices solution? Hope you remember these pictures. Okay, what are the common features of the M2M and the consumer device solution? So now it's more difficult, so probably you have to go back to one of the slides. Okay, from the profile deployment perspective. So what is the difference between the M2M and consumer device? So maybe it was not, so I didn't emphasize that much. Hopefully you will remember this. So the profiles, there's a different way of downloading the profiles, as you remember. Profile principles. Okay, you know what a profile is? So please try to name 5 principles just to remember for yourself. What are the different profile types? How many do you count? Okay. Hope you remember at least 3. Okay, what are your own examples for the profile usage? So again, I don't know. So we cannot do it in the interactive way as before. But so if you have a specific question, so please feel free to send it. Okay, so today we went through the 4 topics. First of them was the why do we have the eSIM? Hope you understood the challenges we had and the definitions of the EUSCC or the eSIM. Then we learned a lot from the trends and deployments on the market. Hope you get a basic understanding of the 2 different concepts, because so in the next parts of the training, so you will have this, I will always refer to these 2 different concepts. We will have the different architecture types for the M2M and consumer. And it's important to understand this. And yes, this part was for the profiles was shorter than the other part, but it's a very important part, and I hope you remember a lot of different types of the profiles, because otherwise it can be very difficult to understand this second part, third part. So the concept of the operator profile switching. Okay, in the next step, so we will have the high-level architecture of the ecosystems. There is a consumer one and the M2M one, and for each of it, I will have the roles and layers with examples from the coding world. Yes, the security aspects. So just on a basic level, so just to understand there are certificates, there are keys, there are algorithms. So for this part, so 5, 6, 7, so there are actually 2 separated parts of the training. And then on the international standards, so just to that you know for yourself, so what are the different what are the different standards required to understand this specific technology? What are the core specifications? What are the test specifications? So this is all in this part. And especially the certification. Certification is quite important if you would like to certify your product. So I'll explain which group are responsible for the certification on a high level, so that you, in order to get basic understanding of it. Okay, I hope you will enjoy it. So thank you very much for your attention. Hope to see you soon in the next parts of the webinar training. Thank you. Bye.